Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to Art of Awakening. And I am super excited to announce a new series of interviews on the channel. Our intention is to provide a platform for the voices of the reconstruction, awakened, wise souls who are helping to envision and manifest new earth into reality on our planet. Our very first speaker is dream practitioner Suzanne Edwards, direct from London. I interviewed her last February, but everything she says is spot on for right now, so I hope you enjoy. Welcome, Suzanne.
Hiya, Ona. Thank you for having me.
It's such a pleasure. So I want to introduce Suzanne just for a bit, and then Suzanne, I'm so looking forward to this conversation. So Suzanne Edwards empowers people to realize their dreams and aspirations through manifestation, dream work, and healing. A lifelong Londoner, she has been interested in all things spiritual and magical from a young age, especially dreams. Suzanne is the author of 3 books covering the topics of neo-shamanism, Aztec shamanism, and crystal healing. She is a great believer that each human being has huge untapped potential that most of us have barely touched upon, and that dreams are one way that we can access that potential. Okay, so I can sense right away this is going to be a magical conversation. So thank you so much for being here, Suzanne.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, maybe I just am curious about this question here. How did you become so interested in dreams?
So I had quite crazy dreams since I was a kid, and that might be quite normal for a lot of children because I think we're more open at that time. But I used to have really intense dreams about things like snake temples
Ooh,
and
wow.
yeah, and apparently there's a real one in India as well with cobras that I found out about as I grew older. But my mum was also quite a powerful dreamer. So she's Chinese, and we have this festival called Qingming once a year, and it's like the Chinese equivalent of Day of the Dead.
Wow.
And you give the ancestors offerings, and every year, whether she was in Malaysia or in the UK, she would dream, they would be banging on her door in her dreams, basically saying, "Don't forget our offerings." So I do think there's something in my family going on there. But also, I had a friend when I was a teenager who was a natural lucid dreamer with no training, like really powerful dreaming abilities. So I think that inspired me to, rather than just enjoy my dreams, to actually like learn to work with them like consciously. So I got a book, the equivalent of like the Dummy's Guide to Lucid Dreaming, and started learning and found it just quite, it's just quite exciting, like what you can unravel with dreams. So much scope like for manifestation. It's also like an oracle. It's like having your own oracle. It tells you everything you need to know. And also they're just really interesting, I think. It's just like watching a crazy movie or something.
Yeah, and well, there's a purity in dreams too, because it's like your conscious mind is not in the picture at all. So like I do a lot of channeling or journaling or through the journal or whatever, but a lot of times if I'm doing that, it's like I always have to really feel into, okay, well, is this filtered? It's always going to be filtered through this conscious mind, but with that dream, it's pure. So this is a really cool topic because I think it's one that a lot of people have questions about. Can you actually learn to lucid dream? And it sounds like you've got some experience with that.
Yeah, no, I think you can, but I think with dream work, and I always say this, there's no timeline, there's no, actually, you don't know. You have to just try. I
Yeah,
think you can. I have met people who have found it quite difficult, but there are many things you can do with dreams, not just lucid dreaming.
sure.
So I'm a great believer in not putting pressure or massive attachment on one outcome. Like there's a big scope for many, many things you can explore. But absolutely, you can learn to lucid dream completely. It might take you a week, it might take you 2 years.
Oh,
So you just don't know. It's something you just have to try. And also, it's like anything, it's also what you put into it without also pushing too hard. It's that sort of sweet spot, isn't it? I think.
right. And that's so true for, pretty much anything spiritual, right? Uh,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. So I am curious to hear your take on why dreaming is so relevant, and especially now.
So I've done some training in the ancient Mexican traditions, particularly Aztec and Toltec. And according to their traditions and their calendar, we're entering an era called the sixth sun. And they have these sun eras, and they only occur once every 6,625 years. So when it happens, it's quite a big transition for the consciousness of humanity. And I know that in other traditions, they're also saying similar things about now and the era, like I know the Indian traditions and the sort of more modern New Age take. They're all pointing to now being this kind of critical timing where there's a shift in consciousness. And with that, like psychic gifts are being reawakened. And part of that is dream work. So the fifth sun was more about like outside emphasis on the outside, like material, like religions and gurus and things like the banking systems, hierarchical systems. That was kind of like what we've been in for quite a long time. And that is changing. And the transition into that started in 2021 and we'll be fully into that new era in 2026. But that all involves inner work and basically going, it's more like going within to find the power within. So dream work is a massive, massive aspect of that. It's not the only one. There's obviously meditation and all those other things as well. But dream work is really where we go inside. And it's kind of like finding within in the darkness the power rather than looking outside or giving that power to something or someone else.
Right.
So I think that's massively relevant. And as we can see, like just a lot of these kind of things are just becoming more popular and more mainstream. You can see a shift in attitude and interest. And it's a way that we can basically become self-realized.
Right, right. Oh, there's wow, I want to take this in two different directions.
Okay.
Well, first of all, I'm really curious about that Aztec concept of was it the sixth sun that we're entering? And
Yeah.
you said that is the sun the time period of the 6,000 some years, or is this a sun a smaller time period within this larger continuum?
No, so each sun period is 6,625 years. So that will last
Got
quite a
it.
while.
Okay. Okay, so we are setting the stage for the next 6,000 some years. Wow. Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
And what are the characteristics of this sixth sun according to the Aztecs?
So that's it. It's going inwards. It's where people are starting to look inwards to find the power. And I think, in a manner of speaking, you could say it's more a more feminine approach
Mhm.
rather than sort of more hierarchical. So
Right.
things like that's why they say things like banking structures are being compromised and all those kind of and religions,
Right.
all those kind of things that have really stood for a long time as kind of establishments are starting to fall and new systems are in place that are more about us as individuals, but also as a like thinking more as a collective
Yeah.
rather than power driven, if you see what I mean. It's slightly different. Well, it's very different actually.
Right. And I've heard
Yeah.
that described in various ways, Christ consciousness or however you want to describe it. But yeah, it's so important, right? Going within and there's that phrase of Jesus, the kingdom of heaven is within. And I think that probably helped to set the seed for it. But I wonder if you can help us to understand a little bit more of the bigger picture of human evolution. Looking at can you describe some of the previous suns? Like there were, I guess, five before
There were
that
other
we're
ones. I
entering.
can't remember them all in sequence, but they have different. There was one that was water, and apparently there were big floods in that era.
Okay.
But water is also connected with emotions as well. So there would have been like emotions would have been very up and down, very extreme, and then physical water actually on the planet. And there was another one. Was it monkeys? Or I can't remember if it was monkeys or knives. It was one of those.
Oh,
Yeah, one. I know it sounds completely bizarre, but there was one about truth. There was one about truth, and there being a lot of lies. Um, Yeah, I can't remember all of them in sequence, but there were different eras and they had, yeah, really huge themes completely set in place.
Wow. Okay. So that'd be interesting to kind of delve into for sure.
Yes. Yeah.
Um okay, and but then now looking at the dream itself and the dreamer, right? Um when you work with people, do you find that there are kind of recurring patterns between people that you see as you're a dream facilitator working with multiple people? Um, are there like types of dreams? And when we dream, how do we take, what we remember of a dream and work with it?
So, to answer the first bit, I would say the patterns are within each person. Like each person's dreamscape, just so far in my experience, is completely unique. But there will be a lot of reoccurring themes in each person's individual dreamscape that keep on coming. And it's actually quite funny because they've never thought about it's actually really obvious, but it's just one of those things where until you start to look at it, you don't see it
Mm,
because we're basically creating our lives through our dreams. That's the kind of ancient way. That's what they believed in many ancient cultures. That it's not the thoughts that create our life, it's the dreams that create our lives. And then that's how we start to think. And
right.
so if you think about your life, unless you really have a very freestyle, unpredictable, with themes that aren't consistent, most people have themes, don't they? Or things that are happening. So we are going to dream about them again and again and again. But it's whether they're creating good things or whether they're creating trouble.
Mm,
And I think for the majority of us, it will be a bit of both, won't it? Um, but with clients, I do see like themes. Like I've had a client who I know is quite a prosperous person, and all of her dreams are about parties with lots of food, and
mm,
there's always a lot of abundance in her dreams, always. And I find it great. I love it. And then there's another one who had a very difficult job, and there was a lot of revisiting of old places, old relationships, places, workplaces. And I believe that the reason for that is if there's trauma or difficult experience, there can be a bit of soul loss or power loss.
mm,
And so this is one of the ways that you can work with the dreams. There's so many ways you can work with dreams, but if you've experienced a lot of power or soul loss through particular events, it
mm,
could be you were in a job that you hated, or you had an accident. So it could be over a period of time or one-off shocking event, or even ones that aren't as shocking, but it still impacts you. I've created journeys where you can go in and actually retrieve the power from the dream. And you can do that. If you're a lucid dreamer, you can do it lucidly in the dream. But if you're not at that stage, you can do it in the waking state through a guided journey or through a drumming journey.
sure.
So there's a lot of multiple ways that you can basically go in and heal and do actual healing. And where you've got a recurring dream and it's obvious that there's pain or emotional trauma there,
Mhm,
you've got the opportunity as soon as you've noticed it to go in and do something about it.
mm,
The other way to do it is by kind of like consciously trying to change your dreams. So if you don't like the pattern of your dreams, you can make intentions to basically plant a new seed or paint a new picture. So if there's a lot of emotional trouble creating something like anxiety in your life, you can also go in and try and create something new. I think it's important to face it and look at it and not just gloss over it. But you also need to sow new seeds if you want something in your life to change. So you can make an intention like tonight I'll dream that I'm healed from anxiety, or tonight I dream that I'm free and I feel joy in my life. So there's so many ways, and with the Aztec traditions, they work with what they call nahuales, and they're like
mm,
animal spirits, and you shape shift into these animals through a kind of breathwork exercise, and you plant these animals that have different animal qualities. They've got their own power,
mhm,
so that's another way you can affect your dreams. So, for instance, if you've got trauma, you could work with the jaguar to go in and heal the trauma. But if you want to actually create rather than heal, you could plant like rain to purify your emotions. There's so many things you can do. It's vast.
Right, beautiful. So with the animal spirits, is that something that you like you have the dream and would you go and like find or decide like which animal that you want to work with and then work with that? Or is it one that you kind of wait for the animal to come into your dream or both?
Well, you can do both actually, because I do believe if an animal comes into your dream, that's always important and it's always means something. That's powerful. So you could yeah, you that's a sign that that spirit wants to work with you. So there's that approach. But with the Mexican approach, it's actually you consciously literally make a list. I'm going to work with this one. This one does
Ah,
this. And they will have very specific qualities.
right.
And so, like the rabbit is the spirit of the moon, according to the ancient Mexican traditions. And so you can ask for a favor from the moon, but it's also good for creativity and for physical fertility
Mhm.
and abundance. So, say you could actually choose that, and then you do a breath work exercise, and you actually end up with it in your navel, and you breathe it out, and you do this in the waking state.
Interesting.
And then what will happen is a number of things can happen here. So either you don't remember the dream, but you find the thing that you planted just happens in your life anyway,
Yeah.
or you remember the animal but you're not lucid, but you've caught that dream through recall. And then the third one, which is probably the ultimate, is that you find the animal, but you have a lucid experience with it. And if you're lucid, you actually say, like in your mind's eye, um, you basically state, yes, this is the rabbit. This is going to bring me abundance, or whatever it was that you
Like that
had the intention of.
affirmation.
Yes,
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
yeah.
Huh. So, how did you learn about Aztec shamanism?
Okay, so like, yeah, unsurprisingly, a dream brought me to it.
Of course, right?
Yeah, it had to be, right? So I went to Mexico. I was traveling in Mexico, and I went to Teotihuacan, which is one of the big pyramid sites just outside Mexico City.
Mm,
And I bought two pieces of obsidian, and one night I unwrapped them and put them next to my bed.
mm.
And the dream I had, the only way I can describe it was I dreamt that I was dancing with obsidian all night.
Wow.
And I was like, that's an unusual dream. I was like, okay, I need to work with obsidian. That's what I thought. I thought, I need to work with obsidian. I've been given a message here, right? And so I went online and I looked up obsidian because there's this practice for women with an obsidian egg. And
Mm,
I'd heard about this, and apparently it comes from Mexico. So I just sort of assumed that this was what it was. And I was trying to look for it all over the place, couldn't find anything, nothing. Was really surprised. Could find everything on Google normally. But what kept on coming up was this teacher, Sergio Magana, Obsidian Tools, London. And I wasn't even in England at the time looking. And I'm like, well, I live in London. This teacher comes to London.
huh.
Like, okay, come on, like this is it, you know. So I went to one of his workshops, but I did one with the mirror. So it was with the mirror. That's how I started. They've got these really intense practices with the mirror where you clear out what they call your underworlds. So it's all your shadow aspects, ancestral karma, current karma, past lives, but you do this like big work with the mirror. So
Mm,
that was my access in, and I loved it. So I just really enjoyed the way he taught, and it was just fascinating. I'd never experienced anything, and what he teaches is really broad. It's a really big topic.
mhm.
So I did quite a bit of stuff with him and ended up going to Mexico as well. He does a retreat once a year normally.
Yeah.
And I met a couple of of his teachers, Hugo Nawi, and there's Elmo and Charlotte out there, and just really fell in love with it. The whole thing really, really fascinating. So it's so interesting what they've got going on there, you know.
Right. Wow. That is so powerful. So, how did you feel? Like, when did you get the call to actually do this work with others?
Well, I got asked to write a book about Aztec shamanism, but I wrote the first one about neo shamanism, and then I actually got approached to write this because they knew that I knew about it, and it's quite, I guess it's quite unusual topic. So I wrote that, and then with time, I don't know, it took a bit of time, it took a few years, but I realized through my own spiritual training that I think it's more powerful to be either on a course with people or in some sort of program.
Mhm.
And so I think you can get a lot more transformation where there's interaction, where there's accountability, where you're also, even if it's just with one teacher or if you're with a group, having other people present in some way, it adds to the energy. And I think you're more likely to have shifts in that situation. So I thought actually maybe it's time to do it. And I thought to do it online because then it's accessible to anyone basically.
Sure, sure. Yeah, there is definitely something to be said for the wisdom traditions, and there's so many of them, but
Yeah,
and choosing one and kind of really following that. I think those people that I've known who have done that, I think there's some access to some really powerful things in that practice, no matter what wisdom tradition it is, right?
for
Um,
sure. Yeah,
been
definitely.
around that long, absolutely. Um, Wow. So I know that you've been doing an experiment with Dreamwork, and I'd love to
Yes.
have you tell about that.
Right. So I just had this, I felt inspired one day to do an experiment, just something free. And so I literally put a post on Facebook, who would like to do a group dream manifestation experiment? I instantaneously got a few responses, and the number I had in my head was 8 people, and we got 8 of us. But I included myself in the experiment because I haven't experienced it before. I wanted to sort of see for myself as well. And so what we did, what we agreed was that we'd have 2 people for each week, and one person would get a night. Everyone would get their allocated night, and everyone would come up with something that they want. So it could be something quite physical, like I want a car, but it could be like I want to heal my anxiety. Do you see what I mean? But it's whatever that person really wishes. And on that person's night, everyone in the group, including that person, makes an intention on going to sleep that we're all going to dream that person's intention or that it's happened, basically. And so we finished our first round in January. And it was fascinating. I don't know if anyone's actually got their wish, but the dreams completely revealed what was blocking them. Like it brought out like our shadow or what needed healing.
Wow.
And we saw it from many different angles, or they got a clue as to something an action they might need to do to get closer to their wish, basically. So it was fascinating. And quite a lot of the group hadn't met each other. Like only I know everyone, whether on I think I've met everyone in the group personally, but a lot of them didn't know each other, they were strangers.
Hmm.
And it was just really interesting. It was very, very interesting experience. So
Wow.
we're going to do it again in
Are
the
you going to do
same
it again?
same
Like,
container. So I think that will give us another layer as well.
yeah, yeah, that is absolutely fascinating, and I feel like, oh my gosh, I'm getting chills almost because I feel like this is the energy that we're moving into, right?
Yeah.
Of really tapping into the ethers in a collective way without losing our individuality, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's amazing. Um, it just like makes you really revisit like the whole idea of human potential, like what we're actually capable of.
completely.
Yeah. So, and I know you have an interest in human potential. I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, completely. I think since a child, I always used to remember hearing the saying once in a while that as humans, we only use 5 to 10% of our brains. And neuroscience has disproved that. But I actually think maybe not within that actual fact, but I think there's some truth in that we're quite untapped and that dreams absolutely are a way that we can tap into that potential because they can show us like really steps or directions that we could or should be going in that will open us up in a bigger way. And I also think the era that we're in, a lot of psychic gifts are being awakened in people. I think that this is actually happening. I'm sure you've probably seen it as well. There's collectively something really going on. But it's not just about spirituality. I think it's like things like athletes. Like athletes use things like hypnotherapy and even things like, yeah, dream planting to maximize their performance.
Oh,
And yeah, like they do things, and I think that a lot of athletic abilities probably a lot of us have, but we just don't see ourselves as being able to do those things. And then other things like genius, like you've got obvious people like Einstein who would just come up with amazing things. But that was because he, even though he was a scientist, he was all about intuition.
right.
And I think that we've just been blocked off from a lot of our intuition because of social conditioning. But
Mhm.
I think if each one of us really fully went there, and we can use brainwave frequencies to tap into it, there's so many ideas and things that can come to us in terms of any aspects of life. Like architects could use it, I think, engineers, maybe for medical science. Um, yeah, artists. I think that it's absolutely mammoth, the potential that we have. And I think that there's the people who are born with it naturally who don't have those filters. But I
Mhm.
think all of us have the potential to take more of those filters off and tap into that. But we just don't see it. We don't see ourselves like that.
Right. Yeah. So what do you find that maybe stops people or that people struggle with when you're working with dreams?
Um, I think there's something to be said for the hustle and bustle of life.
Mhm.
A lot of people are overexhausted, so I
Mhm.
think that that doesn't help.
Mhm.
Um, that doesn't help at all. I think the pressures with our disconnection, well, not everyone, of course, but the disconnection from nature that a lot of people have doesn't help. And I think it's also just that in our society, it's not valued as a generalization. Like in ancient cultures, they would, a lot of them, like a lot of tribal cultures, they would get up in the morning and actually have a circle and share dreams.
Mhm.
And dreams were seen as something of massive value. And I think that if we like literally just took that one simple step of seeing them as something valuable, probably it would change quite a lot, actually.
Yeah. Well, there's that maxim, right? Where energy goes, right? Where your thoughts go, energy flows, right?
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Wow. Okay. So, is there anything that you would like to share with our audience about how they can tap into the power of dreams?
Right, so the first one is just really, really easy. It's just like, just start remembering your dreams if you don't already. So just make a commitment and an intention to start remembering your dreams and get a dream diary. The other way I find really good, because nearly everyone has mobile phones now, is that moment when you get up, because it's easier than writing, especially if you're someone that's not very with it in the mornings. Just talking to your phone, just put the video or the audio on and just speak into it, and you'll get a lot more detail coming out. So that's brilliant. And then just start paying more attention and start questioning, what does this dream mean? Like, and especially if you're confused by like, what on earth did that mean? Maybe if you have a meditation practice, you can just do a simple meditation, still yourself, calm yourself, then think about it. So you can actually, your mind's a bit more open and you can look into it. If you do something like shamanic journeying, you can journey into the dream as well and look into it. And another really simple tip is to start sharing your dreams. So if you live with other people, or if you've just got friends, you could have a buddy that you pair up with, or create a little Facebook group or something, and just start sharing, because it's just about consciousness and also about sharing collectively. All these little things make a big difference.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. Well, Suzanne, how can people find you if if they want more of you and more of,
Okay.
hearing about what you're doing?
So I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn I don't use so much, but I am there if that's the only one some people have, and email. So it's Suzanne Edwards basically. They can find me on those.
Okay, and I'll put the links to your social in the
Yes.
description. Absolutely. And I know that you sometimes come up with really fun things on social, or even just your dream experiment was one
Yeah.
thing. So
Yeah.
they definitely worth a follow. Um,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly right. Yeah, that would be great.
All right. Well, thank you so very much for joining us here, Suzanne. It's been such a pleasure to have you on, and look forward to seeing what you come up with this dream work. And do you have another book in the making, or you said you just have one in the process of publishing?
Yes, the crystal healing one hasn't come out. It's been written, but I'm still waiting for it to come out.
Oh,
So
great.
that
Okay.
probably come out in the next 6 months, I think.
Oh, wonderful. Let me know when it does.
I will do, yeah. And thank you too. Really, really enjoyed this, Owner. It's been lovely.
Well, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Isn't Suzanne amazing? I hope you enjoyed her as much as I did. If you did, show your love by hitting like and subscribing to the channel. If you're not familiar with us, and Suzanne did mention spirit animals, we have a whole playlist on spirit animals here. And as well as there's going to be more amazing interviews coming up. Our next one will be with Dr. Sandra Dreisbach on the ethics of psychedelics. I'm super psyched for that one. So again, hit subscribe and remember you were born to be free.